Now, there's been a lot of suggestions flying around on how to fix the Democratic Party after, of course, the losses to not only Donald Trump, but the losses in congressional races and local state races all over the country. Now, I have argued personally, and anybody who's been watching the show for a while knows that I've been arguing this, that we need, as a country, as a party, the Democrats need to head in a more progressive direction, a populist progressive direction, kind of like the one that Bernie Sanders put forward during the primary. Bernie Sanders is the most popular politician in America, so he's kind of onto something. People really like him. Now, however, there is another strain of thought that's going around, and it's literally the opposite of where Bernie Sanders was going. And this is, of course, heading to the right. Instead of moving left, one columnist by the name of Ross Douthat, writing for the New York Times, argues the Democratic Party should not move in the direction of Bernie Sanders, but instead move into the direction of the right. Oh boy. Now, he starts out by talking about the intra-party debate between Democrats who think that we should continue doing identity politics, which of course doesn't work, and those who want to embrace more of the economic message of the working class. I'm more on the side of, hey, let's talk about the working class, because there are some serious issues that the Democrats have ignored when it came to working class Americans. They've been too corporatist. Now, he says that while that debate is, quote, fruitful and interesting, he believes that the Democrats should move further on to the right wing. Quote, that kind of movement is often part of how political parties recover from debilitation and defeat, not just by finding new ways to be true to their underlying ideology. Well, that's interesting, because that's exactly what the Republicans did, is that when they lost, they went further right. And look, with Donald Trump, I guess it seems to have worked. But Donald Trump, remember, did adopt some populist messaging. So that's fair, right, to point that out. Now, he continues, but by scrambling towards the center to convince skeptical voters that they've changed. That's the core of his argument. Hey, let's move towards the center. Let's go to the right and end up in the center. And the way our politics is skewed doesn't exactly work that way. But anyway, he continues. It's what the Democrats did slowly but surely after the trauma of Ronald Reagan's triumphs. It's what Bill Clinton did after his 1994 drubbing. It's what Rahm Emanuel and Howard Dean did. Notice the entire list of corporatist Democrats right there. To a modest degree, on their way to building a congressional majority in 2006. It's also what Donald Trump did on his way to stealing the Midwest from the Democrats this year. He was a hard-right candidate on certain issues, but a radical sort of centrist on trade, infrastructure, and entitlements, explicitly breaking with Republican orthodoxies that many voters considered out of date. So what this guy is saying is that he actually believes that Donald Trump moved to the center on some issues. Well, he didn't move to the center. On some issues, he was a populist. And look, he opposed NAFTA. He opposed TPP. Well, I'm against NAFTA. I'm also against TPP. So as far as those policies are concerned, I'm with both Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders, who both argued against those terrible trade deals. Okay? That is not a centrist idea. As he said, that's kind of universal, even though to me, it's more of a progressive idea to have more fair trade deals and not more free trade deals, which helps corporations. Now, Bernie Sanders, by the way, way to the left of Hillary Clinton. She took a very, very long time to say that, okay, now I'm against TPP because Bernie Sanders is against it and he was doing better than me in the primary. That's why she embraced that. Now, protecting working class people is also a progressive idea. It's not a centrist idea. The center is more in line with corporatism at this point. And of course, certainly it's not right wing, which is massively corporate. And you also have corporatist Dems like Howard Dean, Rahm Emanuel, and Bill and Hillary Clinton that go along with basically protecting giant corporations and not regular working people. Now, infrastructure spending That's also not a centrist idea, as well as reforming quote-unquote entitlements. Now, for one, they're not entitlements, they're actually earned benefits. For example, Social Security, Medicare, you pay into that through your taxes. That is an earned benefit. You have paid for that. Now, Trump. Now, interestingly, on those programs, Medicare and Medicaid specifically, Donald Trump promised to protect them and keep them as they are. Now, of course, his pick for Health and Human Services Secretary Tom Price, he has vowed to kill both of those programs by essentially privatizing them and then handing over a block grant to the states. Now, some Democrats would be okay with that. The corporatist Democrats love privatization. Yes, give it over to the corporations because our donors, that's who our donors are. And they're going to get rich off this scheme, off your taxpayer money. I don't care about you. I mean, you're going to end up having to pay the cost no matter what. So we win, you lose, haha. That's pretty much how it works here. You have to remember, too, on another so-called entitlement, which is an earned benefit, Social Security. Well, remember, back during the debt ceiling negotiations, he was more than willing to put Social Security on the table for cuts. Change CPI, which is an effective cut to Social Security benefits. Not saying that these programs are completely 100% perfect, but there are ways to fix them without privatizing them or cutting benefits, which is unfortunately what what the Republicans seem to be wanting to do. Now, that's just the first introductory paragraph. I'm not even close to being done with this guy. He then talks about the fact that Democrats are very weak nationwide, which that is something that I would actually agree with. Quote, the Democratic coalition is a losing coalition in most states. Most House districts, most Senate races, the party's national bench is thin. Its state House power shattered, its congressional leadership aged and inert. It has less power than it did after the Reagan Revolution and the Gingrich sweep. Well, you know why? Well, it's because of the failure of neoliberal policies. Obama, for example, he ran on hope and change, but he governed as a centrist. Now, when he tried to do the hope and change thing, he enthralled most of the nation and ended up with a supermajority. His popularity boosted the rest of the Democrats to victory. And then, of course, as we all know, he decided, okay, we have a mandate, we have a supermajority, now we're going to reach out to the Republicans, we're going to be nice guys, and reach out, even though there are people like Mitch McConnell that said the first priority is to make sure Obama fails and becomes a one-term president. And what did he get for that? We didn't get anything. Hillary Clinton, however, she refused to even try to campaign as a progressive and it did not run on change. She ran on the status quo. And, oh, look, she ended up losing in places where Barack Obama had traditionally won. And she lost with the working class. And yes, I know all about the voter suppression, which, yes, is a factor. But my overall point is that it turns out that people want to change, not the status quo, which right now is very conservative on economic issues. Right now, we have an economy that serves the wealthy and giant multinational corporations, not the workers. Union rights are going down, wages are stagnant, benefits are disappearing all over the workplaces. And so it's not working for the majority of working people. But instead of bracing economic populism and actually doing progressive policies to solve those issues, which is clearly where progressives stand, this guy, Ross, instead writes that we should look for incentives or look for issues where Democrats might possibly move rightward, back towards the voters that they have lost. Well, if you're moving right, you're moving further away from those voters that you lost. And then he talks about the issues. He says, and so are the issues themselves. The Democrats have ceded a lot of territory in their recent gallop leftward. And it wouldn't be that hard to come up with a revised version of the, again, Bill Clinton playbook suited to the present time. That's what he says. Gallop leftward. Come on. Gallop. No, we have not galloped leftward or anywhere close to being left. No, we on economic issues, we are still, at this moment, the Democratic Party is centrist at best. I mean, look, for example, tax cuts during the Obama years, in the debt ceiling negotiations with John Boehner, John Boehner ended up getting 98% of what he wanted. And a lot of those were tax cuts. Yes, some towards the middle class, but the majority, of course, helped very, very rich people. No, gallop towards the left. You've got to be shitting me. And look, he wants to go back to the Clinton playbook. That same playbook then ended up getting us NAFTA, deregulated the banks, the telecommunication industry, that opened up the floodgates for conservative media and for media consolidation by a few very, very rich corporations. Again, he's saying that we should use the neoliberal playbook that people are fucking sick of and voted against. This election was a repudiation of neoliberalism, not liberalism. Now on the issues, here's what Ross suggests. He said Democrats could attempt to declare a culture war truce, consolidating the gains of the Obama era while disavowing attempts to regulate institutions and communities that don't follow the current social liberal line. So basically, he's calling for no more fines on Catholic charities and hospitals. No more transgender bathroom directives handed down from the White House to local schools. So basically, let's not protect anybody. Okay, great. Restraint rather than ruthlessness in future debates over funding and accreditation for conservative religious schools. Without backing away from the support for same-sex marriage and legal abortion, leading Democratic politicians could talk more favorably about moral and religious pluralism. Basically, more guns, more God, and more small government. I remember there was a Democrat that ran on that stuff. His name was Mark Pryor, and he got brutally crushed in 2014. Didn't work out so well, did it? No, of course not. Now, the other thing with the funding and accreditation for religious schools, basically he's saying, yeah, let's fund charter schools that can teach creationism and basically dumb down students with tax dollars. Well, that's unconstitutional. That's mixing church and state. You actually can't do that. But that's not all. He says Democrats could also talk anew about the virtues of so-called earned benefits, about programs that help people who help themselves, about moving away from people from welfare back to work. This Bill Clintonian rhetoric hasn't entirely disappeared from the party, but it has diminished. And some of the Trumpian and pre-Trumpian backlash against liberalism in white working class communities was associated with welfare programs, disability rolls, food stamps, Medicaid, that seemed to effectively underwrite worklessness at a time of social disarray. You know, that backlash against those programs is actually caused by, not by the programs themselves, but by a steady misinformation stream from conservative outlets about these programs. See, the maximum amount that people can get TANF, also known as welfare, is about 5 years. That replaced the original welfare program thanks to Bill Clinton. Food stamps also, unless you're in an emergency, have a work requirement, and Medicaid is essentially for the poorest of the poor. So there you go. But look, our safety net is essentially has been shredded. It is not the safety hammock, like what Paul Ryan says. But unfortunately, this guy, writing for the New York Times, he believes that no, Paul Ryan is right. It is a hammock. And that's why the Democrats lost. We need to be tougher. We need to shred the safety net some more. Great. That's what this guy believes. No, See, the real problem here with these programs is that they're people are on them because their wages have stagnated and the costs of living have gone up. People are making less and less, and they're able to afford less and less. Okay, they're not able to afford to live. The problem here isn't welfare. The problem here is good-paying jobs. They're not here anymore. They're gone, and there is no living wage anymore. So those are the problems. Now, and of course, the jobs that are left pay much, much lower, and they have less benefits. This essentially requires working class people to get on more government assistance just so they can live. And these things, these programs now exist as a giant subsidy to multinational corporations who then realize, hey, why pay my workers when I can just, have them get on welfare? I mean, we've seen that whole thing with food stamps and Walmart. Again, Ross shows his profound ignorance on this topic and just toes the Republican line. Now, on immigration, again, look at his framing from the right wing. He says there's similar room for Democrats to move towards the center in immigration policy, which they have. I mean, Marco Rubio's immigration reform wasn't great, but Democrats were like, yeah, okay, we'll do that. That sounds good. However, ultimately, it was rejected by the right because it wasn't strong enough against immigrants. Now, he says to retain their support for humane treatment of migrants, but reverse the creep towards open borders-ism and abjure mass amnesty by presidential fiat. To support a path to citizenship without supporting a perpetually ascending immigration rate. Now, again, somebody needs to tell this guy about facts. For example, immigration from Mexico is a net zero. And on the process of giving amnesty, Obama has actually deported more people than George W. Bush. Again, this guy is missing all sorts of facts. And as far as open borders go, I don't really know any liberals personally that have called for open borders. Most of them actually want some sort of border control, but just border control that's a bit more fair. An immigration reform that's a bit more fair. Because we realize that it takes upwards of a decade for people to come into the country legally. And that's got to change. Now, terrorism, right? Now, he writes that President Obama's obvious preference for a stiff upper lip approach to terrorism made it hard for his party to address the anxieties created by San Bernardino and Orlando, Paris, and Nice. And the sense that the Islamic State and its disciples have ushered in a new and frightening status quo. Interesting. Now, what are we doing about it? Well, here's what Obama's been doing about it. He's launched so many fucking bombs that we have run out of bombs. Literally. Okay? Thousands and thousands of bombs dropped on ISIS targets overseas. Which, in a way, is kind of counterintuitive, since there are innocent people that end up getting caught up in these bombings, which then has the effect of creating more terrorists. That's not a good thing. Now, also, you have the drone program in which Obama, a Democrat, who this guy claims is, gallop to the left, right? No, Obama's been using the drone program to bomb people in countries that we're not even at war with. How's that a left ideology continuing this Bush's war on terror? It's not. He says, in each of these cases, I suspect the party wouldn't have to move that far to compromise that much to end up in a stronger political position. A centrist crime control agenda to pair with a sentencing reform and a more incremental Dream Act-ish approach to immigration, a stress in the most pro-work elements in the party's arsenal for welfare policies, a mild softening of the party's secularism, and complete the sexual revolution zeal. With the right leadership and salesmanship, these moves might reassure and win over a crucial fraction of the many voters, blue-collar and white-collar, male and female, who pulled the lever very reluctantly for Trump. If we're just, if we just reached out to the right wing just a little bit more, if we were more conservative, then we would have gotten those Trump voters. Forget the progressives. No, let's not worry about them. We should have worried about the Republicans, the right-wingers, a little bit more. That's what we should have done. Jesus Christ, man. This guy is either an idiot or he is so far in that establishment bubble that he really believes, and I think a lot of them do, that the right wing, that the Republicans, well, they must be right. They must be correct. And we liberals, we need to stop being so liberal and embrace their ideas. We need to be more like them. That's what this is, too. This guy's telling liberals, hey, you're pretty much wrong on everything. So just be more like the right wing. They are correct. They're right. You're wrong. And you should go over to their side and do compromise. That's not even right. In most situations, liberalism is actually correct. And how do we know? Because we actually had the facts on our side. Okay, we know progressive policies worked. They work wherever they're put into place. And yet, when you do conservative policies, I mean, look at fucking Kansas. Kansas is literally falling apart. Okay? They've got giant deficits. They've had to cut their education budgets. And Stan Brownback is, look, he's literally the worst job creation governor in the state, in the United States. Less job creation than their more progressive neighbors. But of course, passes right over this guy's head. Why? Because he's an establishment tool. He believes that the right wing is actually right and we need to be more like them. It's crazy. It's crazy. And look, as far as moving to the right, we have as a party, the Democrats, they've already moved massively to the right and now occupy the space that once was occupied by regular Republicans, the people that you could actually have a conversation with, not the party that it's turned into now. Because the Republican Party went so far to the right that you have neo-Nazis openly supporting them now, and they're walking them with them hand in hand, calling themselves alt-right. This guy, he claims we need compromise. But that's all the Democrats have been doing with an increasingly intransigent Republican Party. Basically, the Democrats extend a hand and the Republicans punch them in the face. And they keep doing it until, the Democrats say, okay, go, you win. Yes, sir, you're absolutely right, sir. Yes, we need more tax cuts for the rich. Yes, we need more deregulation of industry. Of course, sir. Yes, sir, Republicans are right. You're always right. You're always right. You're always right. My name is Reek. My name is Reek. That's what this is, man. That's what this is. And our politicians do that because they're already weak. Because they're paid to lose. They're paid to appease the donors that want those tax cuts. That want that deregulation. Progressives, we need to be strong. Donald Trump was strong. He fucking Donkey Konged his way through the primary without compromising on anything. Because Republicans love authoritarians. They love authoritarians. Well, I think it's time that Democrats grow a fucking backbone and stop compromising so much with the Republican Party. We're done with that. No, you hit them with a fucking stick and then they'll do. No more of this we need, let's go over to their side bullshit. We are done with that. We're done with that. That's why Hillary Clinton lost. If you are strong, you not only win or have a better chance of winning, but you also prove by sticking to your principles that your principles are right, that you're correct. When you continuously give ground to the other side, you're saying that, yes, they are right as well. And that's not true because that's not backed up by actual facts or information. Now, it's time to stop being weak. We need to be strong. take the fight to Republicans and prove that our side is the right side, because we are on the right side of history. They are not. And again, we need to prove that to them. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent, non-corporate media, go to our Patreon page and become a patron. Patreon.com/TYTNation.